Okay, welcome back. So, exporting from Unity over to your Android device. That's the goal for this one here. Um, I just made a simple scene from the Unity or from the Revit sample file, and it just kind of has a camera that, when played, will kind of rotate around. So in this case here, it's not set up for that yet. So if I go back to the main camera, add some speed to it, and raise it up off the ground, it has like a video game intro feel to it, and that's kind of the goal. Just something super simple, nothing crazy. You do have access to this in case you want to try to do this to your file. Just make sure that you have your your up-to-date Unity Revit file. Okay, so in this case here, I'm going to turn that off. And what we really need to do first is we need to go to File and Build Settings. So under Build Settings here, we need to first add the scene to Scenes in Build. Because it's not going, or you have so many different scenes you can work with. There's a whole lot of things that can happen. It just wants to know, hey, what do I really need to know? So more than likely, you will have the scene open that you want to build from. So that's why they added this really cool button here, Add Open Scenes. Since this is the one that's open, go ahead and click on that. So that adds the scene there. This is just a little checkbox in case you don't want to work with that one. There might be a different version. You can turn them on or off. That way you don't have to delete them. If you make a mistake, just make sure it's highlighted and hit delete or the delete key on your keyboard, and then that will disappear. You make another mistake and you're supposed to keep that file, just hit Add Open Scenes again. The next thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that we have the correct platform. So in our case here, it always defaults out to PC, Mac, and Linux. This little icon here, it's this little weird 3D cube. That's how you know how you're going to build to. So if that cube is here on Android, you're fine. You don't have to do this step. But if you know that you're building to Android and that's the only thing that you're going to build to, go ahead and select Android. See how it's blue now? So select Android and switch platform. Now, depending on how complicated your scene or your project is, this can take a couple of minutes. Because what it's doing right now, it's taking all of your assets. You can see them all kind of being sorted through here. It's taking all of your assets and crunching them down or up to best meet that platform. So there's different ways to compress a texture file, and you would want to do it differently for an iOS device, a PC device, or WebGL. Now again, just keep in mind that this can take a minute or two. Excuse me. This can take a minute or two. So just kind of hold on, which is what it says right here. Let it do its thing. And what I'll do is I'm going to just fast forward through the scene, and I'll come back once it's done, and we'll finish up from there. Okay, so looks like it finished. Actually, it imported a bunch of stuff and made a bunch of changes. Looks like it finished that. So as you can see now, this little Unity box is over Android. We're pretty much set on that part. I'm going to pocket this over to the far left there because we might still need it. We don't need it. We're not going to use this window anymore, but we still might need it. So keep it open. We're going to click over here down at the bottom, Player Settings. That's going to change our inspector window. I'm going to make that a tad bit bigger, and it disappeared. That happens. So what happened, or if that happens again, that's the reason why we keep this window here. Player Settings. One more time. We now have this new window here. And what we want to do is first we want to go ahead and give it a company name. So for your case, I would use something like Interior Design, UCO, or UCO Des, something cool. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to show up anywhere on this one here. So in this case here, I'm going to put UCO CECE, Center for E-Learning and Customized Environments. That's who I work for. Product name, that is going to show up. So when you look at your device and you see, like, when it shows up Facebook under the Facebook icon, that's what that's going to show up as. So in this case here, I'm going to just call it Revit Sample v1. So I know that what it is. It's a Revit, or it's a sample from Revit, and it's the first version I put out. This part you don't have to do, but I always think it's kind of fun. What I actually am going to do is I'm going to take my snipping tool here, and you see where I practice. I like practicing. You take this new item, and then I'm just going to make a small little frame like that. So I'm going to edit that down a little bit, pin, eraser, highlight. Now this is not the best editor, so we're just going to live with that. I'm going to come down over here, and icon, see where I made a practice one. I don't want to ruin it, so I'm just going to call it icon 2. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drag that into my Unity project under assets and let go. I now have a guy right here, icon 2. Make that bigger. Yep, that's what I wanted. Cool. Lost my player settings again, so that's why I kept the window open. Player settings. And then under default icon, I'm going to take icon 2, just drag it over to there. And that's going to be your icon that shows up on the Android device. You don't have to do that part. I'll show you what it looks like when you don't have a default icon. But for right now, that's pretty cool. I like it. It didn't take very much work. And it's going to be recognizable because I'm pretty sure your buildings are going to be different from person to person. So it's just a different way to help make it look different. Under resolution and presentation, default orientation, this does not really matter, but it's just going to make it a little bit more uniform across everyone's projects. For our case, let's just do landscape left. Just makes it a bit easier. You don't have to do that, but I really do suggest it since you all are working in a group. Last part that we need to do is other settings. Leave all this alone and come down here where it says bundle identifier. This thing is set up in a specific way, so what you need to do is just kind of make sure that you keep that templated form that it has. So right now it has this com. I'm going to leave that there as it is because I really don't know what that means. It has a dot. Make sure that dot is there. And company. So under company, I'm going to replace this with interior design. So I'm just going to put int design. Camel cased. That means uppercase I, uppercase D, anything in between is lowercase. Make sure that dot stays, and then I'm going to give it a product name. Doesn't really matter, it just needs to be unique. So for me, I'm just going to put my initials, RW for Robert Wall, and then I'm going to put my year. That's all that really matters. Next thing that we need to do here, version. Since this is my #1 version that I'm building, I'm going to leave it as 1.0. If you find out that you made a mistake and you need to rebuild, I suggest you come in and make that change. It's a small thing that you don't have to worry about, but sometimes some devices get confused, and if you try to install version 1 that was made maybe 2 days ago on top of a version 2 that was, or a newer version that was made today, it might freak out a little bit. Again, I'm not a developer, and that's way underexplained. But for right now, if you're making a new build, change the number to something that you know that there are different versions. That's why it's called versioning. So in my case here, I'm just going to leave it 1.0. And then what I'm going to try to do is, that's it. So I'm going to hit build. So I don't know what that means. That's probably going to show up. I'm just going to click yes, because I really don't know what that means. So in this case here, to make sure that we keep a nice, clean, and tight folder structure, I'm just going to build this inside of my Unity project. So there's my Unity folder. There's all my assets for my Unity project. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it builds. And inside that folder, I'm going to make a folder for Android. So I can tell the difference, because you might make a PC version. You might figure out and make an iOS version. I don't know. Nor do I really care. But in this case here, I'm going to make sure that anytime I build an Android device, I'm going to build it inside the Android folder. So in this case here, you're going to show up as a blank file. And make sure that your save type is APK, so just leave that alone. I'm just going to call it Revit, again with that E, sample. I'm going to put app, and hit save. Actually, I'm going to do 1. 1-1 or 1-0 for 1.1 or 1.0. So, okay, so it's all set up. Hit save. and kind of let it do its thing. It's going to kind of freak out on you a little bit. Some things are going to disappear. Oh, yep, there it goes. Disappears. But that's fine. That's normal. Don't freak out. That happens. So we're just going to let it finish up. And once it does, a folder will pop up and say, bam, done. I'll show you what to do or how to get the file onto your device, and we'll take a look and do a quick preview on that device just to kind of show you what it's supposed to look like. Alright. Right now we're just waiting on it to build. We're just pretty much fast forwarding. I'm going to fast forward through it so you can kind of see what it's supposed to do. There it is. And there's your APK. Excellent. Let's take a look and see how we get it onto our device. Alright.